Here's the Yom Yom for today and for tomorrow. Shabbat. The service, these are sayings by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. The service of man, according to Chassidut, is to accustom himself to see what's called hashkacha pratit, divine providence. What's divine providence? So, I mean, a small explanation. God creates everything, but God also cares about everything. And this world is, like we said so many times, it's a very dynamic place. There's a lot of interactions. And the interactions seem to be, how do you say, very random, right? Things seem to just happen. That's all. There's no logic to it. What they call it chaos or something like that. I don't think all of the scientists and the whatever professors in the world can exactly predict what's going to happen. I mean, if they could, that they would win the lottery and the horse races and the betting all the time. They would. So people don't know what's going to happen. But the fact of the matter is, though, is that one of the reasons that we don't know what's happening is not because everything is random, but because that God is directing everything and we can't understand God. And God is creating everything. We can't understand God. But God reveals himself. That God is creating everything, we can't see. But that God is directing everything, maybe you can see a little bit. Because first of all, we see that a lot of times things happen that are miracles. We see clear godliness. Right? We can see clear godliness. Maybe that's the story that I'll tell one second. Maybe it's too small. Okay. So that's what's called hashkacha pratit. Hashkacha pratit means that God, how do you say, directs everything in the world, every detail. Pratit means detail, and hashgacha means that God oversees. He directs everything. Everything that happens in the world, God is directing it, including every bug that meets every other bug and every rabbit, every hole, everything is. I mean, what does God care about this stuff for? But it says, like King Solomon, that he could understand the speech of the birds and of the palm trees. What do palm trees have to say? What do birds have to say to one to the other? Hey, there's a nice piece of bread over there, and Joe's right. And King Solomon could understand it all, right? Bird 5,704 said that there's bread in such and such a person's backyard. The time is 4:52. Who cares? Whether and he could, but he could. So it says no. There must be very deep, meaningful secrets in everything that is in the world and everything that happens in the world. Okay, we're not privy to all these big secrets. We're not like King Solomon. But nevertheless, the fact is that everything in the world is directed by God. And that we should try to perceive this, at least a little bit of it, or if not in everything in the world, but at least in our personal lives. How God in his goodness renews the universe and all the creations every moment with his divine providence, which means reality, the life force and the sustained existence of all creation. So everything that exists is being created by God. So we can see from everything that happens, from there we can understand, listen, maybe, God is creating everything. This is just mind-boggling. It doesn't make any sense. And so where is God? God doesn't exist. God doesn't exist. God creates all existence. God is infinitely more real than anything we can possibly imagine. Existence has a definition. God, you can't define God, except for that he creates everything. So it says that's God creates everything by looking, and here we have it. Here is the world. There's no more revealed godliness than the world that we don't see anything. So it says Chassidut tries to bring us to a whole new sort of way of looking at things. So we say, what does it mean God is creating everything? It doesn't mean that there's this big being called God and he's like creating everything. It means somehow or other that the world is what I call within God. It's that sort of almost how do you say, an insulting thing to say to God, right? The world is not as real as God is. God is infinitely more real than the world is, but the world is important to God. And to see that importance in every detail, that's called hashkacha pratit. To understand that nothing happens accidentally. That is okay. Now let's see tomorrow. In other words, the world is important to God. Here we go. Tomorrow, when before Shabbat comes in, you should say every sentence of the Torah portion of that week twice. And after each sentence you say twice, then you say the translation of Onkelos, which is usually written there right in your Chumash. Go verse by verse. Some people don't. Some people say the whole thing twice, and then they just say there are different ways. But the way we do it is we say each sentence individually twice, and then we say the that's called the Shnayim Mikre and Echad Targum. Go to your local rabbi, ask him. After, we also go over the Haftorah, or two of them in the case of Shabbat, like this Shabbat is going to be Shabbat Rosh Chodesh. We're combined. So we say everything that's relevant to that Shabbat in the Haftorah. The Alter Rebbe once replied to a genius, and he was well known for his intellectual, how do you say, prowess. The first time this genius, it was a young fellow, he came into the first Rebbe of Chabad in Liazna, the founder of the one who wrote the Tanya, and he said like this. He said, spiritual and physical are opposites. Sometimes having a good quality in the physical world can be a deficiency in the spiritual worlds. Right? Sometimes a person is successful in the physical, it makes him more egotistical. And ego is the enemy of godliness, false egotism. Yeah. So it says sometimes a person being rich, right, sometimes can make it that he doesn't have time to learn Torah. He's all busy learning. So sometimes a superior quality in physical can be a deficiency in the spiritual. In material matters, here's an example. In material matters, a religious Jew is supposed to be satisfied with what he's got. You're supposed to be satisfied with what you've got. You have a house, you have money with that. You should be satisfied with you should try for more. Good, you want to be rich, be rich. But the main thing is, in material matters, being satisfied with it. Don't desire more. Right? It's a big thing. You can try for more, but it's not. That's a good thing. A person in material matters is, if you're satisfied with what you've got, that's good. But a person that has this will get to the highest levels. But in spiritual matters, in spiritual things, loving God, fearing God, you should never be satisfied with how much you love God, with how much you give charity. Never be satisfied. And this can even bring to descent and falling down. Never say, okay, I put on tefillin. Maybe they're not, I don't check them all the time. I pray, okay, I pray 10 minutes a day, but that's more than everybody else does. I'm happy, I'm satisfied with what I've got. The Emil says, well, that's not a good thing. That's very bad, right? That's very, very bad thing. Spiritually, to be satisfied with what you have, not good. Physically, to be satisfied with what you got, that's very good. That's a very good thing, right? God forbid I lost everything. I have a loaf of bread left. I'm happy with what I've got. I'm happy to be satisfied. God wants to give me more, wonderful. But in spiritual things, no, it should never be. You should, whatever God gives me, I want more godliness, more love of God, more love of my fellow man, more love. Okay, story.